and welcome to the fourth principle that will make your progress absolutely 10 times what you're used to. And the way to get to that point is to take these four principles and then apply them over and over again. It's like taking a step back from practicing. Normally we just think about repeating stuff enough times or trying enough times in order for us to be able to play whatever it is that we want to play. In this case here, in these videos, you take a step back and you start practicing using principles so you can get results when you practice. So there's an extra layer here, and that layer is total power, I promise you. In anything, once you take that step back and you start looking at what am I really doing and how can I get more results when I'm doing what I'm doing, then suddenly everything just changes. It really does. But you have to focus on learning these strategies and applying them every single day in order to get the results you want. And it absolutely leads you to the point where you get 10 times the result with anything you practice, because you're so razor sharp in what you do and how you work your mind and body in order to learn these things. In this fourth principle, we're going to make sure that you push all the way to mastery, because very few people do that. And that's why we lined up this amazing process for you in our Platinum Club here that is going to make sure that you carve in a pattern in your nervous system of mastery, because that's what most people are missing. They miss applying these principles and then taking them all the way to mastery. And that's what few people do, because we don't expect to go there. We say like, okay, I want to become really good. I want to go for mastery, right? But we do the same, we have the same mistake going on as when we had that gut feeling of how long or how many repetitions we need to master anything, that we miscalculate. Just like when we're trying to break wood, right? We miscalculate how much power we need. And I tell you, if you hit as hard as you can, you will still not break the wood. But if you hit as hard as you can and you aim for a point beyond the wood, you will break it, if it's possible to break, right? But aiming for a point beyond what you think you need to, or putting up a challenge that is sufficiently small that you can then disintegrate with a massive amount of action is one of the principles, right? But the same thing applies to when you're even thinking about where you want to go. Because most people never get to mastery because they don't aim for a point beyond mastery. So if you aim for the finishing line in your ambition about where you want to go, you're going to slow down when you see it. Naturally, the brain can't not do that unless you trick it by aiming for a point beyond it. The same thing goes if you have like a gut feeling of where you want to go. You are going to slow down before you get there. It's just what the brain does, because it's always preoccupied with saving resources, right? That's why you're here. The brains that didn't do that are not here. They didn't get any children, so So your brain is a survival mechanism. And what is survival? It's economics. It's saving resources. Only allocating resources. That's why when you go to the gym and you do bench pressing, right? I just did that recently, and then I started doing incline bench presses, and I suddenly get sore like it's crazy, because the body only becomes very good at what it's used to doing, right? The second you change it just 1 inch, right, of what you do, then suddenly, that's a new thing, because it didn't allocate the resources to building that part of the muscle before you start using it. It is so, what do you call it? Cheap, like if it was a person, he's cheap. He never spends money on anything. That's the brain, right? Tries to conserve resources all the time. So that's why it stops. Oh, it's right there. Why push like an idiot? Because if you push like that, you're going to run beyond the finishing line, right? You're going to spend resources running all you can beyond it. And that's why how you get in first. Same thing goes for mastery. If you're aimed beyond the point of mastery where you just go, I'm going to play like the best, and then beyond that, then you're going to push beyond mastery. But that's another thing that we seldom do, is that we get passionate about something we want to learn. But please remember this. You have to have a high enough ambition. And most people say, but how do I have one like that, right? I was lucky. I had a dad who always told me that you can totally do it. I go, yeah, but I've been practicing, and this guy, he's much better than me, and he didn't practice that much, and I practiced twice as much as him. You know what? The brain comes up with weird ideas in order to explain why you should give up. And my dad just say, You just need to practice more. You just need to put more effort in. You just need to figure out a new way to get there. So he didn't let me off the hook. I had to go back and just find a way. And every time I came to him with my complaining and my whining, he just said, you just need to find a way. You can totally do it. He wouldn't give me that one little message that said, oh, maybe you should give up. Maybe try something else to become good at then, right? So I was just totally focused on it, and I kept being focused on it. Right? And most people don't have that kind of support, but I would like to support you in that way, right? That's why I talk so much. And that's why I'm trying to convince you that this is mechanics of the body. It's totally achievable. But because we make up all kinds of stories about it, like magic, it's just amazing. He's so talented. Just look at what he can do. Just forget about that. Crap, right? It's crap thoughts because it's not true. Any scientist that's been studying the body and what it's capable of and how it builds patterns in the brain and how far you can take those patterns will tell you that that is simply not correct, that you have the potential to do whatever you can see any other player doing. It's just like it is. And you can say, oh, short fingers, long fingers, I'm too old, I'm too young, I don't have time enough, I have too much time, I don't know how to do it, whatever it is, right? There's always a guy with, much worse limitations than you can come up with who did it anyway. I'm sorry. You can always find a guy like that who did it anyway. So the best thing you can do for yourself is imagine that guy. What did he do to get there, right? That you haven't seen, that you haven't come up with. You can do this. And that's the first step, is going beyond your normal expectations for yourself. You're not a normal guy. Or you are, but that guy who's playing insanely is also just a normal human being. This is how it is. I can't teach you to run the fastest in the world. I can't teach you to jump the highest in the world. But this is mechanics, right? You can go to the full potential of what you are capable of. And that is amazing, right? That is incredible. We just don't go there because we don't think we can. So you need to expand that vision for yourself. And then you need to push all the way through to completion. But what often happens is that we get into our rut of our expectations towards ourselves, and we have this daily wheel of stuff we do. We practice, we go to work, we come home, we do all these things, right? And then we just, we get excited about stuff for a while, and then once we're not excited about it anymore, we stop practicing it. And that's because we're making a crucial mistake. Instead of taking what you're passionate about and turning it into a project that stretches through a predetermined period of time, then we just start practicing it. Oh, I'm all into tapping now. So I start practicing tapping. A week later, a month later, we lose interest in it because we're passionate about tapping. You need to make a shift and make it a habit that every time you're passionate about something, you turn it into a project. And then you become passionate about the project and not the tapping. You're still passionate about the tapping, but the project is really the main thing. And what do I mean by that? Well, you use the 80-20 rule and say, oh, wait a minute, before I start practicing, what is the one thing that will mean more to my development in this area than any other single thing? And you don't know, but you take a wild guess. You make your best guess, right, after watching the courses, whatever it is. See, if I could do this at that tempo, that would be amazing. And then everything else would be so much easier. So let me focus on that. Then you use the principle of mass to really, say, okay, what is my practice plan over the next 2 months, right? To absolutely disintegrate this challenge, this simple little thing, right? And use all the principle. And that is your plan. And you write it down. You make sure you can't forget it. And then you start working. I wonder what will happen after 8 weeks of doing this. I wonder how good I will be, right? And then you become passionate about the whole process of starting here, ending there, and then evaluating how good did I become. Right? You try to prove it like a scientist in the lab. You go focused on the numbers, on the measuring. Measuring with the metronome every single week, every single day, making sure you count your repetitions, in general, like saying, oh, how many repetitions did I do in a minute? How many is that in the 2 hours I practiced today, or the 1 hour? right? How many repetitions is that in a month? And you get all excited about the repetition suddenly, right? Instead of being excited about the goal you never achieved because you get used to every little incremental improvement along the way, you actually see the repetitions and you measure how fast you are in the beginning with the metronome. So you have like a benchmark that you can then improve on. Right? And after the 2 months, you get, wow, I'm twice as good, or I'm 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 times as fast doing that one exercise. And I got in like 100,000 repetitions, or 500,000, or even 1,000,000 repetitions, which is totally possible. Start doing the math, right? Because as you become better, you are faster and faster at your repetition. So you practice more and more in the same amount of time. And suddenly your development just explodes exponentially. Because you can practice, and do more and more practicing in the same amount of time. And so you become excited about that and you stack repetitions. And the normal process for people is, oh, that's exciting. So you start practicing it right away. Give me something I can practice. Then you start practicing it. You lose interest in it in a day or a week and you stop, you never push towards completion because nobody ever does. Right? And if we have a teacher who teaches us, we go on when we're good at something, right? That's the pattern. And if you're a teacher, I'm not trying to put you down in any way. Please be inspired instead of feeling attacked by what I say. But we need to get people, you need to get yourself and say, what one area will I focus on and become a master of in my lifetime at least, right? And that was when I started out. I devised one exercise when it came to picking. I'd say, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. I will simply not rest before I master this at the highest level. And I don't care how long it's going to take me, right? I'm going to do this or die trying. That was the commitment, right? So that's basically it. You focus on turning everything into a project, which means that you use your intelligent mind to guide your body in practicing. Normally, we don't do that. We don't think. Right? Think. I think it was Thomas Edison that said that man will go to any length to avoid thinking, right? But you have to use these principles, become good at them, and then use them to push all the way to completion by simply making a project out of everything, counting where you are, your repetitions, everything, so you get motivated by the project itself. And about your specific measurable goal that we talked about in the last video, right? Your measurable thing. You want to get to that point and you want to celebrate when you get there. You want to work your brain so your brain says, oh, we really get a bang for our buck here. Oh, I know I'm practicing a lot and I get in a lot of repetitions, but I'm really covering some ground. I have 100,000 repetitions on this, and only 2 weeks went by and I'm so much faster. This is development, I'm developing. This is worth the effort. The saving brain, right? The economic brain, the cheap brain, who doesn't want to spend resources on something that it doesn't see any value of. That's why you lose your motivation, because you work and you practice, and because you get used to every incremental improvement, you never see your actual improvement. You just play the same thing. And even though you're playing twice as fast, it doesn't feel like that because you're still challenged, right? And so the brain goes, why are we doing this? Right? Where's my reward? And when you measure and you follow the project and create the project, you have a specific measurable goal and you're pushing towards it, your brain says, we're really getting our, bang for our buck here. And so it wants to keep going. How does that feel when your brain wants to keep going? You feel motivated, right? That's what motivation is. Demotivation is a brain that says, why are we doing this? I'm not getting anything out of this. We just do a lot of work and we get no, reward. Why would you do that? And you feel demotivated, but that's because the brain is no longer giving you the hormones, the chemicals of motivation. It's no longer squirting it out into your body and your bloodstream. So you don't feel motivated anymore. When you do feel motivated, it's because you're getting results and you're noticing those results. And you're pushing all the way to completion. You wanna get to that point where you can celebrate. But there's a huge limitation to this, or there's boundaries around us, because the human mind runs in rituals and circles. And your daily rituals, you got your weekly rituals, you got your monthly rituals. It's not something we think too much about. We just sleep, we get up, we go to work, we practice a little bit here, we have our limitations. We don't want to say to our wife, spouse, significant other that, I want to double my practice time, because that makes us uncomfortable. And, we have kind of little boundaries, and we go here and there, and we do the same things over and over again. That's why when we get older, it's like time goes faster and faster. But it doesn't really, you know that, right? We know that. But the reason why it seems like, 10 years goes by like it's 1 year is because we don't experience anything new during those 10 years. It's just the same days and the same weeks and the same months that we experience over and over again, basically, right? They look so similar that it seems like we only have experienced 1 week or 1 month. And that's why as we grow older, we got more and more used to our lives and we run more and more around in circles. And that has momentum. And that momentum is like a huge ball of, snow that's rolling down a hill. You try to stop that thing, you get crushed, right? And it's growing bigger and bigger as the longer or like a flywheel, a big heavy flywheel that just turning, and it takes forever to get it rolling, right? Once it's rolling, you can't stop it because it's so heavy. It's got so much momentum. But you need to put that circle, by the way, those rituals, that life, those things we do over and over again, that's what produces the results in our lives. And if you want new results on this instrument, you have to put new things in there. You have to install new rituals, new habits, new things you do every day. New thoughts, new principles that then guides you. But there's a momentum of doing the same thing we always do. That's why most people never get to mastery. Or one of the key reasons is that we look into a lot of videos, we get inspired all the time, and then we have like a little explosion, poof, of passion, and then we stop. Poof, another explosion. And we got like 1,000 explosions over, 5 years. But it doesn't amount to anything significant because we don't need little explosions of passion. We need to turn every explosion of passion into a change in that, in that wheel of habits, of rituals, of stuff we do every day. And the only way to do that is to say, stop. How do I turn this into reality? How do I use these principles? How do I do something new? How do I turn every passionate idea into a project? And we say, okay, that's a cool idea, Claus, and nothing happens, right? In most people, nothing happens, or a little bit happens. 2 steps forward, and then it's over, right? Can you recognize that? I can from my life, certainly. Right? There's so many great ideas, and I didn't act on them, right? Even though I think this is a really cool idea, I can totally use this, and nothing happened, right? Because our habits, our wheel is running with so much momentum that if we want change, we have to think in another. It's not about taking action right now. That's also a cool idea, but it's about thinking about how can I install this on my flywheel that is so hard to start. How can I put it in there? And the only way to do that is to turn it into a project, right? It really is. You can't just say, oh, I feel a little overweight. Let me go for a run. It has no effect on you whatsoever. Maybe that day you get a nice little pump up, right? It has no effect because it's only a temporary, and it will stop. As soon as you don't feel passionate about losing weight anymore, you're going to stop. So you have to think, I want to lose weight. What new behavior could I install in my life and practice that will give me what I want or push me in the direction of what I want? And then you practice installing that behavior, that tiny little habit every single day. And then you get huge results over time. And as soon as that is installed, that first thing, you install the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So you always think about changing that wheel because that wheel gives you your results. And if you can install new things in there that work better than the previous, and you can keep doing that, you have an enormous momentum that will absolutely 100% bring you to absolute mastery, right? That behavior. And that is turning everything into a project. So it makes an impact, right? Instead of just being something that you do when you're passionate about it. This is so important, right? And you have to listen to this session over and over again in order to really get it, because that's the only way to install it, right? That's the first step. You take one step back and you listen to these 4 principles over and over again. And every time you do, you think, am I doing that? How can I become better at doing that? What could I do every single day in order for me to install the habit of thinking like 80-20? Or what can I do to be more clear about where I want to go? Have I specific goals? Am I overwhelming? Could I make a new decision about overwhelming my tiny challenge and absolutely crushing it, right? And you do that over and over again. You become better and better. And your whole life becomes a reflection of that. Your whole practicing, your whole life with this instrument becomes more and more effective. And then you don't look back because you just push all the way up to the top of what you can possibly do. And suddenly everything becomes easy because those habits, those principles are installed in you and you have the result. And you're just on such a high level of skill that you can learn anything. And you can learn anything so fast. It's amazing, right? But you have to install it. And one of the reasons why we created this whole concept that we're going to launch here tomorrow is that we want that to happen. We want to give you a tool of saying, okay, stop. I've been practicing for a while now. How can I make one decision that will have enormous effect on what I do on this instrument? How can I create an explosion in that flywheel? Carve in some holes, put down some dynamite, light it on fire, and really create a change, right? How can we give you a chance to make one single decision that will then have a disproportionate effect on your skill level? That's what it's all about. So I hope you'll stay tuned for tomorrow and really check it out and really give that some serious thought to whether or not you're going to follow us or not. And we got only a limited amount of seats because this is a handheld process. We need to spend hours on it. It's not like we, put a program out there and as many people as, can possibly go into it will go into it because it doesn't take extra resources for us to. This is another thing, right? But it's another thing because, just think about it. Why do people go to a teacher? Basically for 2 reasons. Because they want a process. They want a guy with more experience than themselves to define a process of what should I learn, when, right? Please guide me there. And please cookie cutter the whole thing. Give it to me in little pieces so I know what steps to take to get to where I want to go. And that's what the teacher can do. But the more important thing is that coaching effect we have. And if you go to a teacher every single week, then you feel bad if you didn't practice, right? You have to show up and do the thing, and you can't do it because you haven't practiced enough. It's like going to the gym and paying for a membership in a gym, right? That money, if you don't go, it hurts, right? Paying that money every single month. And that's enough to make people come more than if they didn't pay, right? It's committing. And that's just one decision. Pick up the phone, call the teacher, and say, yeah, I'll be there. And then that one decision will make it much harder for you not to follow through. But it's it's not enough. If you want to go all the way to mastery, you need so much more, right? You need access to such a wide resource of tools that you can just pick and choose from. Every time you have a challenge, just take a new resource, a new practice method, a new way of looking at it. So you have that information. And then on the other hand, you need to be coached all the way. You need somebody who can see your challenges, come up with solutions to them, and design a practice path that follows these principles so you would get explosive results in the shortest period possible. I'm already long into selling this thing because I'm so passionate about it. And what we get for IFS here is that we get to create the results that we want to see. Right, over the years, I lost some contact with people directly because I'm not answering emails anymore and haven't done so for a long period of time. And I'm really looking forward to getting my hands dirty again, right? To really getting into and say, what are your challenges and how can we help? How can we push you to that level? And what specific things do you need to do? How can we apply these principles and put them into a plan to bring you all the way? To make a shift happen, right? In 3 months, we can't bring you to the absolute ultimate level of mastery, but we can make a shift happen where you can't look back, right? Where you can't unlearn the things you've learned. You cannot not see or unsee the things you've seen in your own development. So it just sticks with you, That's what we want to do. We want to create that explosion to shatter your daily, weekly, monthly wheel of practicing and how you look at yourself and your whole process, so that never goes back to normal again. So we've installed some new stuff in that wheel, right? That's what we want to do. But you don't need us to make some of this happen or to start the process anyway, right? You don't need us to do that. You can apply these 4 principles and get better at applying them and get so much better results, 10 times what you get now. But please stay tuned for tomorrow, where we will go into the final step here, and I'll give you some really cool insights on how to progress from here, how to create a practice plan that you can just use right off the bat and get started right away. So this becomes very practical. And I'll also tell you everything about the new concept here. So please look by tomorrow, stick by this process until tomorrow, and I'm really looking forward to see you there. So, see you in the next video.